Okay, that's great. We are live on YouTube. So just want to thank again everybody who has participated here. That's great. We are live on YouTube. So okay, sorry for that. I just want to welcome, and again, everybody, just small housekeeping. Please mute your microphone at all time. You can ask the questions in the question box or the chat box. If you have any question, please raise your hand and then we will manage that. There will be some polls running throughout and we will be having a feedback survey. This session is recorded and it will be streamed live to YouTube and later on to Spotify. My name is Rudy Shoushany. Most of you hopefully know me. I am the founder and host and moderator of Digital Transformation Talks. I'm specialized in ICT governance, cybersecurity, and digital transformation strategies. We will be sharing our WhatsApp group link in a few minutes that's coming. Join that group. You know, it's always on the forefront, getting all the new information, whatever is happening, discounts, free trainings, and so on. And again, just wanted to mention, today is the first session of season 3. So far, you know, we had 3 seasons, so which is excellent. And today we're opening that 3rd season with our special guest, Samia, Mrs. Samia Melhem from the World Bank. And let me go through the numbers a little bit. This is our official stats as of Monday. So we are on season 3. We have so far 41 episodes of DxTalks. We have more than 40K of views on our YouTube. So, you know, YouTube channel only started in the beginning, technically in the beginning of the year. So after 4 months, actually, we're seeing 10x growth on that. And thank you. That is all because of you. More than 64 plus guests, live Zoom, more than 5,000 participants, and actually 2.5 million minutes of community altogether. Now, there is only one group. If you are in it, that's it. If you are not, we'll send you the link now. We also launched Crypto Talks in parallel to our formal format. It's every Wednesday. It's with Tay. We're talking about the latest blockchain technologies, crypto hype, latest projects, whatever is happening on there. Last week we had an excellent, actually not last week, a couple of days ago, we had Christelle Bishara from, she's a Lebanese, but based in Dubai. She's an artist. And we had a great session about non-fungible tokens, talking about the future of the e-commerce and how can now artists, you know, be on the forefront of the latest technologies. So without further ado, let me welcome my guest. Today's topic is Middle East Digital Transformation Outlook with Mrs. Samia Melhem from the World Bank. She's a global lead and digital capabilities infrastructure and PPP, public and private global practices. Mrs. Samia, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rudy. And thank you to all the participants who are staying late to listen to this. So you're obviously interested about the topic, and yourselves, you're probably stakeholders in it. Before we start, I want to thank you, Rudy, for inviting me. It's a pleasure and an honor being Lebanese American myself and bridging between the diaspora in Lebanon and the Middle East around this very exciting topic of digital transformation is very dear to my heart. We have a lot of sad things happening in our region and in our country. And to me, digital transformation and all the opportunities brought by the digital sector bring hope and bring project and opportunities. So before I start, I'd like to give a shout out to my family and friends that are watching on YouTube. I know you are many. If you're watching, Mom and Dad and Biba, love you. That's my family. And I want to acknowledge from the participants on Zoom, some very esteemed colleagues who also have a key role in that sector, starting with Mrs. Nibal, who's the Idlibi, who's the division chief of the ESQA ICT and Innovation. Ahleen Nibal, good to see you. I count on you to reinforce some of my data. I also want to welcome my colleague Baria from the World Bank. Hi, Baria. Tanya Zaroubi, who's worked a lot on digital government in Lebanon. And last but not least, my dear friend Chloe, who worked at ITU. So for all of them and for all the participants, thank you for joining. Thank you, Christina, Farhat, for joining as well. I hope I can entertain you with a 20-minute tour de table of the status of the MENA region in digital transformation. I don't want to do more than 20 minutes. I have a lot of slides and I will share them with Rudy. So he will share them all with you. It's all about data and numbers that are public. I just put them together. And I hope we can have an animated Q&A after that, which Rudy will moderate. So without further ado, let me share my screen.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to say to our YouTube viewers, really thank you for being there. Whatever you have questions, we will also be taking them inside here. So make sure that you are also writing those questions. And our audience in Zoom, also please write your questions here. I just shared the WhatsApp group, so if you want to join it, if you didn't before, that will be it. And I can see your slide, and the floor is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rudy. So here we are talking about accelerating digital transformation in the MENA region. And then I will have a little bit of a deeper dive for Lebanon and other countries. So we are now at a crossroad. And this is the typical slide that the World Bank has been presenting to all the MENA country region. It's really a time where after the Arab Spring 10 years ago, we really ought to question ourselves. Where are we going as a region? And how can we really accelerate development? The Arab Spring did not solve all the challenges that the MENA country faced, and we still have persisting issues of trust between people and government, very few opportunity for youth. We have the biggest brain drain of any region, and a lot of vulnerable people as a result of shocks, wars, violence, and conflict. We need governments to really step up and enact reform, especially for digital, because all that I'm going to describe is great, but if it's not backed by strong reform in every country, we will not be able to leverage the advantages of digital economy. And of course, you know better than I do, especially colleagues in Lebanon, the triple impact of the pandemic, the financial crisis, and the last August 4 explosion has really put the economy on the ground for countries like Lebanon. Yemen is not doing well either, et cetera, et cetera. We're not going to go through a sad list, but you know what I mean. On the other hand, we have the opportunity with government and societies willing, because societies have a role to play, to rebuild back better. There has never been a more opportune time for change. And as you all know, COVID has pushed a lot of the change. For example, when it was impossible to work from home for many employers, they had to adjust. People are working from home, people are delivering, and there's more trust between the employer and its employees as to the viability of working from home without doing the clock ticking that we used to do in the traditional workplace. But coming back to the program the World Bank is rolling out in MENA, it's, as you see, it's around the immediate relief, restructuring, and recovery. So relief from COVID, relief from conflict when possible, restructuring in terms of the industry, the market segments to allow for more like digital, and at the same time creating an opportunity for a new deal, a new contract between World Bank, institutional investors, the donors, and the governments who want to partner with us. And of course, there's a lot of risks. And at the same time, it's an opportunity to rethink everything we do in the light of climate change and green recovery. That's a lot to do. That's a lot to do, and no one can do it alone. As strong as it is, no government, whether it's the US, as you see, the UK, Singapore, really needs everybody to work together. A really integrated approach from both the government side, the investors, and society. This is an example of some of the operations that the World Bank is investing in. You will see a lot in Jordan. Jordan is doing a lot of projects for youth, for education, for climate change. Same for Egypt, same for Morocco and Tunisia. This is not a comprehensive list. I just wanted to list the type of work. And a lot of it is supporting governments through loan and grant. And the rest is also supporting the private sector through IFC, the private sector arm of the World Bank, International Finance Corporation. So in conclusion, what we see as the World Bank is there was a lost decade after the Arab Spring. Most countries could not enact the reforms that caused the Arab Spring to start with. COVID made things worse, adding additional shocks, shrinking of the GDP, losses of jobs, health and misery to the people who lost their lives or their relatives. And so we see that really it is time to act. And we have a 2022 date, we call it the Marrakesh agreement. It's for the annual meetings for the World Bank, who typically never happen in the Middle East. This is the first time. It's Marrakesh. Last time was in Bali. And how to push governments and private sector and all stakeholders to advance. And digital economy is really an area where I personally see a lot of opportunity for this region, where we have a lot of youth. They're all very innovative. If we take Lebanon, for example, we have so many young entrepreneurial, young, 20, 30 something. They're free thinkers. They want to make a change. I can see the same thing about many countries. I'm working now in Saudi Arabia, and you'd be amazed. I can see the same type of enthusiasm and energy. Jordan, Morocco, Tunisia, Egypt. The digital economy is now worth 11.5 trillion. By 2025, it would be 25% of global GDP. To give you an example, in Lebanon now we are 3%. So if we do the right thing, we can increase for 22% our contribution to a digital economy. We're not taking away anything. This is something that doesn't exist yet. We can build it. So that's why I'm hopeful that digital economy will bring some more prospects and jobs if we play the right steps, if we play our act right. AI, artificial intelligence alone, would contribute 15.7 trillion to the global economy, this time by 2030, by 9 years. Again, a tremendous opportunity. And where does this opportunity come from? It's from more connected objects, it's from more data, it's from more software and services, managing all this for better water, better climate change, better transport. And the question for us is, how do we skill up our country, our people, our region to be able to leverage it? So we're not constantly importing expertise. In fact, we want to even be exporters of that expertise, like many of our neighbors are doing in the South, in the West, and in the North. Another opportunity, obviously, is all the mobile money, mobile application, very little leverage in the region, especially for Arabic content. And really, this digital economy, it's not something you can use and build overnight. It really has foundations. The foundations are high-speed broadband. It's digital ID of people, of buildings, of geographical locations. It's a lot of digitization that has to happen before you start to see the innovation and the services around this digital infrastructure. And you see countries, for example, like Korea. Korea spent more than a decade in the mid-1980s to the mid-1990s, completely digitizing all the public sector, all the records, all the land cadasters, everything before they started to provide services online. And they are now for the last 10 years, ranked in the top 5 to 10 of the best performing countries in digital government. They created jobs, they created a new industry, and they're exporting their know-how everywhere in the world. So it is a necessity. The connectivity, the public-private sector partnerships around it, and the transformation of a lot of what we have already. For example, many countries in MENA, the public sector is the biggest employer. 70 to 80% of people working in a country work for the government. So and very little works in the private sector. So how can we change that? Bring in more innovation, more agility in the government, and at the same time, retransform these jobs for jobs in the private sector. And we will do more on this as I keep going. What are the risks? Nothing is rosy and perfect. There's always risks. There are risks. We talk a lot about the digital divide. Many of you experienced it during COVID. Everybody to get the COVID vaccine had to get vaccinated online. Well, tough, right? For many people who don't have access to the application, or if they do, it's hard to get. It's in English, they don't speak English, etc., etc. That was a tiny, tiny example, but you can infer it to a lot of other more complex transactions, such as, for example, applying for visas, paying your taxes online, applying for a job online, or doing your job online. So a lot of exclusion, especially for poorer population, women, we talk a lot about the gender digital divide, and the youth that are vulnerable. And it's a shame really, because youth is the biggest mover and driver of that. But when they're vulnerable, they're not in a system that can help them get schooling and help guide them. They can use digital in bad ways, as we all know. Cybersecurity is a risk because with all this data and all these transactions online, the hackers are there first. And believe me, they are the best and the fastest innovators in terms of bad intention. So how to make sure we have great digital economy, but it's well protected with strong local competence and expertise to guard it and mitigate the risk of attacks. Of course, data protection, it's great to have data, but the consumer has to be protected. The anonymity of the owner of data often has to be protected. How to make sure we have that, and to ensure the rights and liberties, not allow censorship, for example, to prevail, and to make sure at the end of the day, it's just a logical balancing act, that all this is used for good. That's how I call it. Just use tech for good. And all our leadership, from our Vice President Hafiz Ghanem, who's from Egypt, to Farid Belhaj, the Vice President of the MENA region, have equal faith in digital economy. We call it a moonshot. And they want to see us accelerate uptake of broadband by 2022, next year. We have measurements for that, and uptake of use of cashless transaction, so digital payment. And for my colleagues in Lebanon, just imagine how much it would be easier if money was transferred seamlessly, especially in this time of crisis, without going through the manual processes that we all have to go through. So here we have divided the countries in 3 categories for the digital payment. The front runner is Jordan. And Jordan, let me say for you, when I talked about Lebanon, 3% of the GDP is going to digital economy. Jordan was, before the crisis, between 12 to 14%, however you call it, much larger than the GDP contribution of agriculture, for example, or tourism. So just food for thought for us, as Jordan is a big exporter of technology. Category 2, Egypt, Tunisia, West Bank, Gaza, Morocco, and Lebanon is in category 3 because we have severe changes for the legal and regulatory framework. For mobile, we're doing better, but you can see from that list, the front runners, of course, Gulf countries, the 6 Gulf countries are doing great actually, followed by others. Why? Because these other countries have pushed for liberalization of the sector, pushed for competition, so multiple operators provide multiple services and compete to retain the customers. We have several activities, several investments. We have Digital Mashrek, It impacts Lebanon, Jordan, and Iraq. In fact, on June 3, we have a big conference in Beirut around the digital Mashrek. And from Digital Mashrek, we have an activity called Skilling Up Mashrek, SUM, which aims at training, I forgot the number, but I think it's around 1 million youth on intermediate and advanced digital skills. And in Lebanon, we have a partnership with BDD, Beirut Digital District. We have 10 ongoing pilots in terms of education, and I can refer to these later for you. Needless to say that for digital economy, it's not just cash payment and broadband. There are 3 other elements in the framework. There is digital platform, and for many of you, it's digital government. How can government go online and act as an ecosystem driver of online services? The other one is digital skills. Everybody having to have digital skills. The African Union enacted that by 2030, every African will have access to the internet and will have the foundational skills to transact and prosper. African Union. So, and the 5th one is digital entrepreneur. So an area we will discuss, here they are. If you look at the top right corner of the screen, digital infrastructure, skills, digital platform, financial payment, and entrepreneurs. These are the 5 pillars where we are focusing our investment in partnerships with the governments that are embracing the agenda and want to partner with us. I give you examples here. We have several projects. I'm not going to go very much in depth. These are just samples. We have in West Bank, Gaza, a 20 million operation to help enable the legal and regulatory environment so people can sign and pay online, digital signature, digital transactions, implementing the digital infrastructure. So for example, if from one day to another, public schools have to go online, there's no big crisis. Broadband is available and is rolled out to the schools using cloud computing. So really using technology as a service and tailoring it to the demand. And of course, fostering talent, fostering skills, and making sure that you are enabling these youth to create value in their country. So not everybody obviously has to emigrate. Jordan is another case. Jordan, I'm going to put some ranking there. We use the UN E-Government Development Index. It's from 1 to 190. 190 is Central African Republic and Central African countries. And the first 10 are the regular suspect, you know, Singapore, South Korea, the UK, Australia, Denmark, etc. So Jordan is number 117. And this study is really about making data for policy for the government of Jordan. So really enabling the whole environment, which is really making sure that data can be leveraged, decisions are made based on data. Governments and civil society have dashboards of performance, and there is trust. And there's a lot of open data in there where government will be releasing open data to share with private sector, with people, so you can innovate. Jordan is one of the few countries that is part of the government partnership, which means they publish every year their budget and a bunch of other access to information for everyone to use, to reuse, and to innovate as needed. It's great for journalists. It's great for ICT innovators. In Morocco, we're working a lot on digital agriculture. As you know, Morocco relies heavily on tourism and agriculture. Morocco is 106 in the UN e-government development and is steadily climbing up. It's a country that reforms slowly, but they've been very thoughtful and methodical in their development. And they're combining digital with green. So every type of equipment, data centers, etc., they are really making an effort that it's going to use renewable whenever possible. As you know, there's the biggest solar power plant in Morocco, in Ouarzazate. They want to make good use of that, but also they want to look at e-waste, so they're not littering with devices. I mentioned I'm working on the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. They are steadily improving. They're number 43. In fact, all the Gulf countries are between 20 and 60. The strongest one is the UAE. And what they're trying to do is participation. The the focus of the government of Saudi Arabia is to have inclusive participation, women, youth, not only in usage, but in design of digital government services. And here they are. You can see a snapshot from our region, UAE, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, followed by, this is more a snapshot of Asia, but you can see who are the top performers. You can see all this in the UN EGDI 2020. It's available for all. Let's move now to Lebanon. Lebanon is 127, unfortunately, out of 190. We used to be in the double digits, by the way. There was a time in our country where we were double digits and things in the telecom sector were very promising some 15 years ago. We started in 2018 to work with the then government on a digital economy project. And the discussion was going well. We could see some kind of united view on what to change, what to transform. And the idea was the biggest and the strongest pillar of that operation was not only reforming the enabling environment, providing a lot of digital services. They were a lot, by the way. Lebanon did a lot to put e-government services online, but seldom used, rarely updated, not well thought of. It's not something you can do overnight. Most of the top 10 countries, like I said, started in the 80s, 1980s, 1990s, when many of you were not even born yet. So it is a constant and sustained effort. And it's not going to go. Technology is here to stay. So we got to get, in all our countries, our act together. And the biggest pillar of the digital economy project for Lebanon was, like I said, the foundations, the efficiency of service, and promote the private sector. At some point, we were discussing of doing a mini Bangalore-like possibility in Lebanon to do offshore call centers and software development for the rest of other countries. We did also a few studies on telecom liberalization, examining the impact of introducing a third operator, and a lot of such things, which I can talk about in depth further. Right now, as I said, we are heavily investing in digital skills through BDD Academy. And we are working still in policy dialogue on how to improve digital financial services. So this is a little bit where we are. I'm going to skip a lot about this, which I will share with you. But the idea also was in the project to have a startup act, like the UK, like Italy, and have a targeted program to support startups in terms of really deleting all the red tape around it, sponsoring a lot of the investments or giving tax credit, tax breaks, and allowing some special economic zones for incubators and startups to be lodged with very high-speed broadband, et cetera, et cetera. So this is what I wanted to share with you, and I'm going to stop here. Rudy, I'm sure you're going to have a lot of questions, but maybe before, I wanted to call upon my colleague, Nibal. Nibal has led many studies. Maybe she wants to add something very informally, Nibal. I know you're not prepared, but you have a lot to say on this agenda, and I'd love to hear from you.
Okay, hello everyone, and it is really very nice talk, and I thank you, Samia. Thank you, Rudy, also for organizing this session. Thank you, Samia, for the comprehensive presentation. It's really fantastic what you have provided us with information. It's really very interesting. I would like to shed some light about some positive aspects that we witnessed, like during the last year, I believe, in the Arab region, especially for digital transformation. We witnessed that there are many countries now, they are accelerated the rhythm for digital transformation. Thanks God, Yani. I believe COVID was pushing government to move ahead, and they have recognized very well the importance of digital infrastructure and the importance of digital services and so on. Then there is some efforts, and there is some accelerated efforts for digital transformation. I cannot say that it was in all countries, but some countries, like for example, today in Palestine, they have adopted the strategy for digital transformation. It was today that, I read about it today, but they were working on it before that, and ESCO was supporting them in this regard. Jordan adopted it some time ago. And there are Morocco as well. I mean, they adopted digital transformation strategy. Then there are some movement. I would like to start by the positive side of the story. Also, I mean, I believe that during COVID there were some push for legal aspects for digital transformation or for digital payment, for example, such as in Tunisia. I mean, some some laws, I mean, was adopted during last year because, I mean, of the importance of digital financial payment. I mean, and then the government was really, I mean, adopted the appropriate law. In fact, although they were reluctant to do so before that, I mean, then there were some push in this regard. And I would say that it was an occasion, a good occasion for accelerating the rhythm, especially for medium to high level country in digital transformation. You mentioned that middle income country as well as GCC. GCC, they were really in good shape. And you know that you mentioned it, that the digital services as well as the infrastructure are really going very well. I mean, and they took advantage of that during COVID. They were able to continue their work to deliver their services, education platform, and so on. Then I would, this is one side, but from the other side, I would say that in the Arab country in general, I mean, this is before COVID even, there is the digital gap. Unfortunately, it is increasing. I mean, we have a very big gap, I mean, between our countries and the globe. I mean, the world average or the other country in the world. And unfortunately, for example, digital gap for gender, it's really increasing. I mean, between this, I mean, the recent years and some years ago, I mean, that the gap increased. I mean, and this is really, and the inclusion between rural and rural area and urban area in each country, this digital gap is widening in a way or another, and this is unfortunate. And we know that there are many countries which are under conflict or post-conflict, where the infrastructure was destructed during the different during the wars. I mean, the different crises that happened in Syria, in Yemen, in Libya. Then we have serious issue of infrastructure, I mean, in these countries. Then the gap also between countries in the region, it was increasing. I mean, the gap in digital infrastructure and in digital services as well. This is then, there are some bright side, there are some, how to say, some aspects which were a little bit negative. ESCO, as we are, of course, we are trying to support member country by digital transformation. We are pushing especially digital government transformation. However, I believe we are also supporting some SMEs and entrepreneurs to move towards digitalization and to adopt more digital platform and digital solution. ESCO itself also, we are trying to provide some platform, some resources or some platform for digital platform for the region in different area. For entrepreneurship, we are trying to have it in for digital Arabic content. We are trying to have one. We are having one very soon in open government, for example. Then there are some efforts for also increasing the digital platform for the region in specific topic from our side. Other aspect that we are trying to do is, of course, utilization of technology, digital technology in all other sectors, like agriculture, like transport sector, as well as in climate change and in energy, and as well. Then this is what we are trying to support. It is, of course, it will help and support the accelerate the achievement of SDG. This is our objective, to have more footprint of digital in different sectors for accelerating SDGs. I will stop here for the time being, and if there is a chance to have another time, I will. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nibal. For sure, I will connect with you for further, communication, because what ESQA is doing, and yourself as into the innovation, I think you're, in the right time and the right person. So I think we all are now, that digital world. It's amazing what's happening now. Thank you a lot again for for that short notice, and thank you for updating us on what's happening. We'll definitely dive more. My first question to Samia, I have it from Facebook, is sorry, just okay. Sorry for that. Okay, how can we tap into the BDD? I won't call it project. Let's call it project. As NGOs and civil society, can they tap on that, or it's can you explain more on the project? You're on mute.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, thank you for the question. So the Sum Mashrek program with the BDD has 10 pilots, and for each one of the pilots, they're either selecting or they have selected already partners. For example, I know that they also have partners from Google, Amazon, Coursera in terms of providing the content. And they follow different approaches. For most, it's train the trainer, and then the trainer goes and does that. For example, for the teachers, as Nibal said, COVID was a great accelerator. A lot of the teachers have to very quickly learn how to provide lessons online, provide the tests online, etc. So the trainer approach was followed. The 10 pilots are anything from basic foundational skills to use digital, like now, use Zoom to learn, for example, for learners, parents, teachers, to more in-depth programming. They have boot camps in Python, in Java, and they are also partnering with a lot of the employers. Maybe many of you on this call, your company or your small, medium-sized enterprise is already in partnership to hire as interns the young, and basically it's between 18 and 22, the young people participating in that bootcamp training, which is on average around 6 months, and the cost varies. It's a bit less than $1,000 for most. This is all through that grant that I mentioned from the World Bank. The best way is to contact BDD, but also I can put you in touch with my colleague in the World Bank office who's managing this program. And the idea, it's not only Lebanon, but it also will be rolled out to Jordan and to Iraq. So we are doing that pilot of the 10 different programs. We have a program entirely dedicated to girls, and it will be scaled up and adapted to the case of both Jordan and Iraq. And this is all part of that three-year grant.
Thank you. And I think this touches, as you said, the area and not just Lebanon, which is good. Hani, I want you to open your mic, but before you open it, you ask question, what is BDD acronym? It's Beirut Digital District. Okay, so this is, I think, the piloting that is happening now, and then later on it will be going throughout the region. So if you don't mind asking your question live, and that way, are you with us?
Yes, hi, how are you?
Okay. Yes, Hani.
How are you?
Good.
Do you want me to open the camera, or it's okay right now?
It's up to you.
Okay, great. Oh, let me try. Okay. Okay, hi, how are you?
Great.
Well, let me be frank here. The thing is about the many acronyms are passing by, and I'm not very familiar.
Sure,
I guess I'm from the old school, and I'm still trying to grab things to get on board by any means possible.
Sure.
I'm trying, and I'm trying, and that's why.
What's your question, if you don't mind?
Yeah. The thing is, when you're talking about digitalization in Lebanon, what's our role here? What should we do? Or I'm talking about individuals living in Lebanon, for example. I'm living in Lebanon. I have my work. I have my work outside Lebanon, but I'm living in Lebanon. But what do we do as personnel? This is number one. And number two, and how can we join forces? How can we support the thing and at the same time support ourselves to be on board on this digitalization process? Let me say it that way. That's my question.
Thank you, Hani, for the question. I have almost the same question from two other people. How can they? Because we are talking from a pain point of view. We have a problem here. Our government is technically sleeping. We're not going to go into the politics just to cap this on. But how can this maybe jump onto the second part of the people, NGOs, PPP, all of those, so we can help on that part.
This is great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Hani. And I apologize for all the acronyms. I know they're off-putting, and I will, when I send the slides to Rudy, I'll make sure I spell them out. So that's a very good question. And I guess the answer is probably different based on the type of business that you are in or other callers are asking about. First of all, as individuals, we have the voice, hopefully, to really demand something a little bit better in terms of services for government. And it doesn't have to be all digital. A lot of it has to be simpler, more accessible. At some point, we had, through the government portal, all the information onto how to go through a procedures that was published in both Arabic and English. So demanding access to information, demanding the cost of transaction. So once you are in the office, face-to-face, once COVID is gone, you have a validation of a scientific way of what are the steps you can verify. And there's no room for interpretation. So demanding the access to information, demanding simplification of services that are, some of the services we have where you go and you require stamps, physically going here and there. Honestly, this is from like 100, 150 years ago. And I'm working all over the world. I've worked on more than 50 countries. Very few still have that. And it's easy to change. And it might modify the job of the person in government, but it will make it more interesting because you're going to have to do things now, transact through the computer, and make it a lot less opaque for people in terms of when they receive the service, how much it costs, etc. We have a few services that have been digitized in Lebanon that work well, but I really would like to see all of them, especially the ones the most used by people. Second, as an entrepreneur or as a business owner, you're living in Lebanon, you're transacting abroad, you need good connection. You need affordable, high-speed, reliable internet, and almost unhackable, so your data is not stolen. And you want to be able to do digital transactions. You want to be able to pay online, maybe sign a few documents online. All this is not very complicated to do. And we've had laws allowing this for more than a decade. It has to be transformed and applied into daily life. So these are the type of things that we can do. We can demand nicely to our caretaker government. And like I said, we had advanced a lot in the first part of the 2000s. We had a lot of laws ready. And what we haven't done in Lebanon, I'm talking, is applying them. Now, if we're talking about other countries, one of the things I'm seeing that is very successful in both Jordan and Egypt is governments really investing with private sector in the IT industry. So they have special economic zone, they have IT parks, they have knowledge cities, knowledge village, as they call it, and they have concentrated there a lot of the young innovators that do not want to be employed. They are subsidizing them, seed funding, not much, $5,000, $10,000, and then they are going through selectivity. They choose 1 out of 10, then they choose 1 out of 100 for the next stage. And they facilitate their getting closer to venture capital, both local in Jordan, but also international. And that's something that we can definitely do in Lebanon. We have a lot of great ideas. This is a part where private sector is very strong. We just need to link loose ends together and have a comprehensive program. And last, I just want to say that in our earlier engagement, Nibal was with us also when we were doing digital economy for Lebanon. We sponsored the digital strategy for the country, and it was approved by everyone. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Once we have a goodwill and authority to do that, a lot of the items that were on that strategy are identified then as quick wins. They can be implemented. They just need a good teamwork and an enabling government, enabling environment from the government to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I just want to run a small poll meanwhile, so you can, just high level, depending on where you are from. I know there's many people from different places. Unfortunately, we have for the YouTube audience, we have more than 100, by the way, on YouTube. So I cannot run the poll there. So excuse me for that. But I can take your questions, which I took one, and I will be taking another one also within a few minutes. Mr. Mohammed Rushdie, can you take that question, ask that question, because I think it's important and it sets the base for anything we actually want to talk before really talking.
Thank you, Rudy. Thanks a lot for the really presentation, and it's very insightful, really. Digital identity is really a main pillar for any digital transformation. I can see even some of the countries here, which is very advanced in the digital transformation. From even the presentation, they still, maybe working, or they have some issues still with setting up, a digital identity. We'll talk even later on about, a universal identity later on. There's some even working group working on something like that. For what do you see, how is Arabic countries in general, progressing in this area? Because, without having a digital identity, I think lots of the, gains from digital transformation will not happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mohammed. This is an excellent question, and it's a challenging one. Digital ID has gained a lot of traction globally. We have a group at the World Bank just focusing on that. And it came at a time where we all realized you can advance as much as you want in digital government, but if you don't have a digital ID, there is that much that you can do. So right on. The whole MENA region, except the Gulf countries, are struggling with that. I have worked on Morocco on digital ID, and I started to work with Lebanon on digital ID as we were exploring digital economy. Digital ID is a big issue because we have so many registers of citizens in our country. You go to get your car, to buy a car, you have a certain ID, driving license ID. You register for a school as a student, you have another registry. And all these registries are still paper-based for the most. The worst one is you are born and you get your certificate of birth, and it's also paper-based. Same thing for obtaining the Ikhraj al-Aid, etc. Not only in Lebanon, in many countries. And it's because for a long time, identity was the unique, under the unique control of ministries of interior, who are also in charge of security, police, etc. So by nature, these ministries are protective of their data assets and are a bit worried about transformation and changes. I think we all agree on that. What I'm seeing working in Morocco is they adopted the India example. And I don't know if you've studied India. India is going through a terrible time now, but India, 1.3 billion people, in 10 years, gave a digital ID to each and every one of its people, not only citizens. They have a lot of non-citizens there. And what they did, they had giant collection of few things: your name, your last name, your middle name, your biometrics, your 10 fingers, your eyes, your retina, and etc. And through that program, Aadhaar, unique identification for each person, have created on top of that ID access to services. So for example, you used to get support like subsidies for your kids to go to school, or for bread, or for gas. Well, Now you get it only when you do it through this ID, and it automatically goes to your mobile bank account or to your real bank account if you have one. But most of these people are unbanked, so it would go to a mobile banking account. And it took 10 years for India, but they did that. Now Morocco is following the India example, and they're starting with people that are already on the record, on paper. They're digitizing the paper record, like I said, Korea did. They're verifying the data because you want to make sure you're not double counting somebody, triple counting. It happens by mistake. Sometimes this is very honest mistake, or worse, you're not forgetting anyone. And that's what Nibal was saying at the very beginning. The vulnerable people, as you all know, have no ID. We counted a few years ago that more than 1 billion people in the world have no ID, which makes us also question sometimes our population statistics, right? Now, for a country like Lebanon, to go back to Lebanon, we're a small country. We're what, a few million people? Believe me, this is what India would do in 1 week, give a digital ID to everyone. But you need so much for this. You need, first of all, to change the legal and enabling environment. You need to have a very close partnership with Ministry of Interior, who has the data, the providers of that digital ID, and then all the ministries and private sector who will do the use cases, who will help you to open a bank account or get insurance with that ID. So once you get the enabling environment, and if there is a real will to do this for a small country like Lebanon, it can be done. And let me just say, it will create a ton of jobs. The guy who takes the picture, the guy who collects, the girl who collects your biometric, the data analyst, the cybersecurity, the redundancy of the data. It will create a lot of digital jobs, and it will bring our nation one step above in terms of adoption, but also knowledge about one big digital project. And if you look at all the big countries that made it big in digital, they worked very well with their private sector. So this is not something that the government will do, but the government will recruit qualified private sector firm to do all that. And will just do quality control, quality assurance, and policy setting. I know it's a bit idealistic what I answered, but I hope it helps a little bit.
Yeah, thank you for that. And just want to note that my Crypto Talks Wednesdays is co-hosted by Tay. Tay wrote a book which is called The Invisible Son. So invisible means he doesn't have a birth certificate. So he's also facing one of those problems. He's now a refugee in the Netherlands. But I think, you know, what you talked about really taps also on that problem. Interesting, you know, something I couldn't know about, or I couldn't, you know, grasp at the beginning, that there are people without identity, and it could be solved in a click of a button. Super easy, but yet governments and you know, the will to do it is not there, and it's super easy. Anyway, we're gonna continue our questions. If anybody has his raised hand, Chloe, please go ahead. I have a lot of questions.
Hi everyone, good evening. Thank you for this very, very interesting talk. I have a question. I'm going to try to make it straight to the point.
As long as it is not political, it goes.
No, never. So it's true that there are so many digital opportunities and training in Lebanon. For instance, we can digitize everything in terms of government institutions, where everything today is on paper, and we could actually train the youth to in terms of data entry so that they could digitize everything that we have. We could also create centers in remote areas in Lebanon where we can train the youth to hold the center and have people to come there and do everything that they can. For example, register to vaccines, take appointments for visas and whatnot. So that it would also save them a trip going to Beirut. So at the same time, we could also reduce pollution in a way and traffic. But how can we accelerate this digital transformation with this huge and immense immigration and brain drain going on in Lebanon? And at the same time, how can we make information accessible to remote areas, to young people, to promote training and to promote digital careers. I work right now with an NGO called KODI in Lebanon. It's a coding bootcamp for vulnerable youth, where they teach the job of web developer. And we get a lot of questions of future students saying that they want to apply, but that they're not sure that it's made for them, because either they come from conservative families or they have the lack of knowledge or lack of confidence. So how do we democratize tech and education, communication? How do we make it more accessible?
Thank you, Chloe.
Thank you very much, Chloe. This is a billion-dollar question, but it's a good one, and it's great that young people like you also are interested in championing that, because honestly, a lot of the change will happen through you guys, through the next generation who has less legacy, who is less afraid of change than us, for example. I'm just maybe speaking for me, but I see that everywhere. Youth, supported by good funding and the wisdom of maybe the older ones, can do miracles. And for me, Lebanon, post-COVID, I see two sectors that are prime for it. And it's what we were saying. They had to pivot: health and education. Health and education are typically the least funded sectors by government, right? Because they are, unfortunately, often underfunded. It's time to rethink health and education by different groups, obviously, with help from the youth, as to how do you make it more accessible? How do you make it more interesting? You'll get better results at school. How to inject a lot of modern processes and techniques in it so that we get better results, and reach out to people without having to have them add to the pollution and the traffic and to road casualties, obviously. So a comprehensive revamp is great. And I think it's a good opportunity now. I see it in a lot of my client countries. What are we learning from COVID? That discussion between public and private. What are the lessons learned? What worked? What can we scale up today with what we have? And I think you will find a lot of things innovative and easy to do, or easier to do, without changing laws or having a lot of super strong government backing behind you. From the teachers, from the parents, from private schools, it can be a movement to do major improvements and reforms. And it will create, like we said, jobs, different jobs. I'm involved with two diaspora networks. LIFE, it's a Lebanese investment finance executive. We have chapters around the world. The objective is to bring visibility to Lebanon, and as much as we can, help from the outside. It's not specialized because it started with finance, now it's consulting and legal, etc. The specialized one is LebNet. LebNet is an association of high-tech entrepreneurs and leaders from Lebanon. They're typically all in San Francisco and Silicon Valley. And LebNet is really trying to see how we can create jobs in Lebanon. And there's also a whole movement that LIFE created called Jobs for Lebanon. And everybody's trying to do what I said in the very beginning. If you don't need your employee to be located in New York, in Paris, in Sydney, and you can hire a knowledge worker, hire in Lebanon. So there's a lot more that can be done and scaled at that level. But again, like everything I said, it needs mobilization. It needs people with good ideas, not to be one and two and work individually. It needs hundreds and thousands of people to work together in Lebanon. And that would be a great example of unity, in my view. We have such a divided country. You know, you all know better than I do. Maybe an initiative like this, that is not political, as you said, Rudy, that is really aiming for development, jobs, happiness, and well-being, maybe that could attract people from multiple walks of life to work together with support from government.
Thank you for that. I'm just going to share the first results. so some of you have some advanced and medium, I would say 33% of the audience, while the rest are suffering with their e-government initiatives or status. I'm going to be launching another one. Meanwhile, I'm going to go for another talk. So please also do respond. Thank you for the responses. And I'm going to be sharing in a few minutes feedback survey. So please, really, we'd love to hear your feedback. We'd love to hear your comments. How can we enhance this, talk? It's, in the end of the day, it's about you. It's about those participants that are helping us. I will share it on YouTube also, because I know you guys are many there. So let me take another question. There is, I think it's a general question. I don't know if you can really answer it. Is there any, number for the budget allocated to the Middle East in terms of billions of dollars, or,
You mean in terms of digital development projects?
Yes.
Okay. I can give you off the bat some numbers. For example, we have projects for youth and technology development in Jordan, and it's $100 million project. The ID project I mentioned in Morocco, it's a social protection project. It started by being 200 million, and then it dropped because the government decided to use open source software. So the solution is much cheaper than if you get a proprietary one. So it dropped to either 100,000 or 110. So these projects vary. I'm working right now on digital Congo Brazzaville. Congo is not a big country, 6 million people. And we're preparing an operation for around $100 million to completely revamp and build all the foundations that I described in digital economy. We have some countries like Ghana, where we've been present for almost 20 years. And we've had 50 million, 100 million. These projects last 5 years. So it's a 5-year implementation cycle. And it's a lot of investment, it's a lot of technical assistance, etc. So that's kind of the range we're seeing, and all depends of how much is needed.
Yeah, I have a question from Patrice. Patrice, if you take it live, if you're available with us.
Yes, hello. Mrs. Samia was saying that they did a study about the telecom industry in Lebanon, and they found out that if we introduce a third telecom operator, we would be able to accelerate the digital transformation. I would like to know how a third operator will be beneficial for this sector, and if the existing 2 operators won't be able to take this lead. That's it.
Thank you, Patrice.
Thank you.
That's an excellent question. Thank you very much, Patrice. And this is not to, this is classic competition, market competition, if you will, Patrice. And it's really to see how we can improve broadband adoption in Lebanon from 60, 70% to 120% faster. And how can we provide consumers, such as yourselves, with better service? And the key and what works everywhere is competition. When countries have 2 operators, and it's not just Lebanon, it's most countries, when you have a duopoly, it's comfortable. In our case, they're owned by government. They're doing all they can, but if they are private, and if there's a third party, competition will create more innovation, will drop the price, will ensure more investment in infrastructure is done. We have a lot of areas in Lebanon, not a big country, right? But a lot of area lacking fiber infrastructure, lacking cell towers. And this is an investment that operators should make. Now, bringing a third, as global experience shows, not only drops the price and gives better quality of service, but also forces new investment by that third operator. And then they can agree with the existing 2, whether they share that infrastructure, which we would encourage. Why build more infrastructure? Just agree on infrastructure sharing and get money out of it for the third one. And improve the quality of service for people, not just doing phone calls or WhatsApp, but now learning online, looking at telehealth video online to learn, to teach, for nurses, for doctors that are in Beirut, helping doctors in far away, north of Tripoli or south of, in the south, where you don't have specialists to do an operation without having to go there. So that's the idea. At this point, with the 2 operators, we don't have that infrastructure. A third one will, based on the study we've done, will help improve both for the consumer, but both also for the infrastructure in general. And this is not a political statement. This is just a economic constat.
Yes, it's known. It became a kind of a standard framework, I think, operating worldwide. So I'm going to be sharing the second poll results. What is the biggest barrier to becoming fully digital? Is it leadership, business model, funding, no strategy, don't know where to start? I think the top was leadership that we are missing, and followed by lack of strategy or no strategy. And thank you for actually responding. And I think you guys are right. Mohammed Badreddin, you raised your hand. Do you want to go, or I'll skip? Okay. I have a question from Mohammed Zahwi, if you don't mind opening your mic. Okay. That wouldn't be subjected to political issues. Well, in Lebanon, many things are political, so unfortunately. That's where transparency comes in, governance, the right governance, and the right things. I think once they are put, it will make some more competition. Go ahead, Mohammed.
Hey, hi everyone. Thank you, Rudy. Thank you, Samia. My question, actually, it was, I saw in the presentation that you were presenting that more than 70 or 80% of the job are with the government sectors. So in this case, in Lebanon, how it's possible to push, let's say, the Lebanese government to applying digital transformation in their activities and services. Here, I want to highlight something. So if we train people, especially the youth, for digital transformation, where they will be applying this, if in our country we don't have opportunity to let's say, to practice it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mohammed. Excellent question. By the way, the 70% figure is not for Lebanon. I don't know how many, how much is the civil workforce part of the overall total workforce, but this is for countries, different countries. I know this is the case for Kuwait, for example, but it's not for Lebanon. I don't have the data for Lebanon. What will the government do? Look, if the government is really willing to change, really willing to say, look, we've done whatever, 80 years of that way, let's change. Let's do it differently. And we're going to start with the easy ones. Like I said, education, health, easier, because we started already. Another one for you is tourism, trade, everything which involves private sector, etc. The hardest to crack is the government-to-government procedures, which have decades of legacy and habits, and they're almost sacred. And let me just say that it's not only Lebanon, all governments have that. It's very difficult to reform government, and it has to come at the very top. It's what we call herding cats in America. It has to come at the very top, and it has to be sustained for years. And no wonder, like the best performing ones have had for a long time, despite different changes in presidents and prime ministers, everybody walked the walk towards that global vision of digitization. It doesn't matter what party is in charge, that's the vision we implemented. So going back to the case of Lebanon, we have the challenge that we are kind of paralyzed right now. Lots of things without being political, right? I'm just trying to think practically. We've had a lot of interest from a lot of donors, the World Bank, the EU, France, you know better than me. There's a lot of mobilization that could be done if certain reforms are done. One of these reforms is access to information, right? Access to information. By the way, guys, like I said, I mentioned a few countries I work in Africa, they all enacted access to information. And so this is the one thing where like it would be a show of goodwill. It will create more trust. That's the first thing, to create trust. And then you start to create projects around it. You have your overall strategy. It's too big to be done. It needs years. You start to break it into small Lego pieces that fit together. And for that, you need a minister who's a champion, above the minister, a government who wants to do it, a bit of funding to be able to pay for all that. There's infrastructure, there is people, there's salaries, hiring private sector for that. It's a matter of putting the pieces together. That being said, let me just tell you, a lot has been done in the past. I don't want to trash that away. There's a lot of databases in Lebanon done by previous administration, by private sector. They are sitting unused. They're there. The head of IT knows, but no head of business comes to tell him or her, hey, you have that data. You have this geographical data. Let's make nice maps. Let's make it around the e-tourist application, for example. So for our case, very specifically Lebanon, not MENA, know what you have, reuse what you have, make it accessible in a very transparent way, and make it a model to encourage others to follow. So government gives the order, gives some of the funding, private sector implements. And for the private sector companies that are hired to do it, take it as a test also of exemplary behavior. Of course, you want to make money to pay your people, but you want to do a good result. You want to showcase something that will be used and that would be scaled up, some pride in it. So it's really a call for all of us to do our best to salvage what we can as we know today. Thank you.
Thank you, Samia. Thank you.
Maybe some of you want to comment. It doesn't have to be a question. If you all have probably a lot to say, so yeah. Maybe short comments. What do you think?
Thank you, Samia, for that. I think you tried to bridge also part of your offerings is to tap onto the entrepreneurs directly without passing into the governmental entities. Was it using BDD or upskilling, or even I'm sure under the BDD there's a program for entrepreneurs or people who want to go into that kind of field so they can open opportunities for them, and this is what you are trying to do. I totally understand it, but unfortunately everything has to run. We cannot run without a government, that's for sure, but there's a lot of attempts. Meanwhile, Tanya says we need the commitment from the government. I don't know, Tanya, if you want to open your mic. I know I know you have a lot to say, but I don't know if you want to talk anything or ask anything.
Thank you, Rudy, and thank you, Samia. Yes, I just wanted to say that we do have a very comprehensive digital transformation strategy for Lebanon and an implementation plan which was done in 2019. On the table.
Tanya, we cannot hear you. You put, I think, your hand on the mic. Tanya? Okay, I think we lost Tanya. What they sent me are the numbers for Lebanese public servant is around 200 to 230,000 in Lebanon. So I think percentage-wise, it's high, but it's not that 70%. It's much, much less. All right, we're going to be getting more questions. If you have any question, please do submit them. Thank you for those who are staying. We know it's past, it's at night, and it's a bit late, but thank you again, really, for all your support. If anybody has a question, please open the mic. Let me check out on YouTube if there's anything. No, that was answered before.
Rudy, can I say something on what Tanya was trying to say? And
yes.
just a quick one. I know everybody, it's late, and I so appreciate it, especially during Ramadan, and Ramadan Mubarak for all who are celebrating. I just wanted to say, Tanya, you're absolutely right. And we started in 2018 with the OMSAR team and all of the government, a very comprehensive digital transformation strategy. It's like a Harvard case study. If you look at it, it is really great. That's what I was saying. No need to start doing that. And it identified quick wins, medium-term win, long-term win. By the way, from Muhammad, digital ID was part of it. And then with everything that happened, it stopped. But with the will of government to restart this, it can be taken anytime, and we can just, hit the ground running with it. That's all.
Thank you, Samia. I know you have to leave. I'll be, sorry, no problem, Tanya. We understand. I have a session on Monday about e-government and e-governance with I Have Learned Academy and KSA, the German agency. I will be posting the link on the chat, so please do attend. Again, thank you, Samia. It was very valuable. Thank you, Dr. Edelby. I think you were, the data that you gave us is very valuable. I'll be connecting with you also. Thank you all for your questions, for your interactions. Thank you for our YouTube audience. Really, really interesting. Thank you, Muhammad. Thank you, Patrice. Please fill out the survey. We really need to, to get more feedback. So thank you again. If anybody has anything, and from Samia, I'm gonna excuse you. I know you have a meeting. So thank you a lot. And if anybody has a question, I'm here to take it. Meanwhile, bye-bye. Thank you, Samia.
Thank you so much, Rudy. You should be proud of what you've done. It's a great format to exchange ideas. I wish you all the best, and thank you for everybody who participated. Hope
Thank
to see you all soon.
That's the idea of this, try to really promote this and try to really help as much as we can in the community and, in Lebanon and in the region.
We sure are. Thank you very much. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.